What was the biggest plot twist in your life? Not a very happy one. I'll make it as short as possible. Posted about this before. Met my bio dad when I was 23. After a couple years he invited myself and my toddler son to come live with him as I was struggling financially. Wanted to put me in his will. His wife at the time suggested a paternity test to be sure. I get the mail in. Swab your cheek 1. 6 weeks later the results came back that he wasn't the dad. She kicked me out. I was homeless. Dropped my son off with his father and explained everything. Said give me 3 months to work and save so I could get an apartment again. Father of my son claimed abandonment without telling me and got full custody. Plot twist. 2 weeks after that, bio dad's wife flipped out and in her moment of crazy admitted a triumph of swabbing her own cheek and sending it under my name for the paternity test. We've since retested and he's my father. I've posted it before, but it seems relevant. I married a girl who implied she would heal herself if she was without me. I hopped on a cavalcade of abuse and infidelity for 10 years. Punctuated with her stints in an institution. I was so stressed out by her that I would literally get heart palpitations before she came home from any of these stays. Luckily, I was bailed out when she fell in love with her best friend and took off. I filed for divorce which took another year because my spiteful ex wanted to punish me by delaying her signature. Borderline personality disorder is not fun. There is a happy ending however. The divorce finally went through. And I decided to take a little in-town vacation. I got a nice hotel room and treated myself to an elaborate dinner. When I had finished my fantastic meal I gushed to the waiter that it was the best I'd ever eaten. She told me that the chef was available if I wanted to meet her. Being the Irish gabber that I am, I gladly accepted. A few minutes later, the chef came to my table and we had what could only be described as a love at first sight moment. I'm not even sure what we said to each other. If anything. At first, I asked if she was free after her shift and we have been together ever since. After losing 3 kids to miscarriage and infertility, my wife and I started the process of an adoption. Days after we sent all the final paperwork off to China, we found out my wife was also expecting twins. I now have 3 11-year-olds 7 weeks apart in age. I thought my brother was happy and confident and that I was the depressed loser. He healed himself and now I have to pick up my weight and go through life without him. Brother survived suicide attempt 14 years ago. Mother survived suicide attempt 7 years ago. Didn't recognize the signs. Boyfriend committed suicide. Gave up learning German aged 14. I was studying French as well. And used it far more often. I remember saying when will I need German after this? At 24. I got a job in Austria. The language of Austria is German. 14-year-old me didn't think 10 years ahead. Pretty much coasting with zero responsibility up to about 27 years old. Then hey you've got a brain tumor. And also your mum has cancer. Have a fun few years fam. I recently, 5 months ago, moved out from a friend's house where I lived for almost 3 years. He was arrested 2 weeks ago for possession and distribution of child porn. Had a best friend growing up from who was also my neighbor. Siblings always said that I looked like him and that it would be funny if we did a DNA test. Years go by and we are both in our late 20s and he on a whim does the Ancestry.com DNA swab. Turns out he matches with my family. He's my half brother and dad had to explain a lot that day. Spent all of childhood and adolescence wondering where all the cute boys were and waiting for the right one. Thought that maybe I just had very high standards. Yup. Les. When I was 19 I attended the wedding of a friend I had feelings for. I clearly remember thinking, what a damn shame. He could do so much better. 12 years later. He's my husband now. When I went from being a depressed kid living in the middle of nowhere who got to go to a concert every 5 years if I was lucky, to a heavy metal concert photographer attending 50 or more shows a year. I was a regular 17-year-old teenager and then found out my girlfriend was pregnant. I'm in that boat now. Although I'm 18. How'd things turn out for you? My kid still isn't born, so I'm trying to prepare myself as best as possible. Moving halfway across the country only for my dad to tell me later we had to because my mom was getting into our church's cult. I grew up winning loads of free pizza for being a bookworm, not to mention having a trophy case full of academic regalia. Plot twist, IRL social skills matter far more than knowing what two rivers merge to form the Ohio. I was 19 and casually seeing a girl. Then one day I found a lump in one of my testicles while I was taking a shower. Went to the doctor and it turned out that it was cancer and that they would have to remove it. Oh. And I would have to have at least 2 rounds of the most intensive chemo out there if I wanted to not die. There was also the very strong chance that I would be sterile for the rest of my life. Realizing that this was something that I might not survive, I ended things and dropped off the face of the planet for the girl I was seeing. As I didn't want to end up being the dead boyfriend. She found out what was going on though and basically insisted that she'd be with me through it all. She came to every single 8-10 hour chemo session and helped me through recovery. Fast forward 6 years and we are happily married with 2 kids and our 3rd on the way. I was contacted in July to take a DNA test to see if I was the father of a 2-year-old in Norway. I am in the US. 99.9996% match in August. Best plot twist of my life. I was drug addicted once and a very good friend gave birth. I visited her in the hospital and held the newborn. Not my child, but I said to my inner self with this dirty hands, "You can't hold a baby." That's when I stopped and never consumed drugs. Had an incredibly awesome time with a girl. Turns out, as her mother, divorced, asked her about me. That my father used to visit her mother. Around the time the girl was conceived. Have by all accounts an amazing childhood devoid of loss, tragedy. Loving family. Awesome vacations. Great friends. Etc. Plot twist, have depression. Since I was 13. I have had horrible foot pain whenever I walk more than an hour. When I worked at my church bookstore, I would often have to sit for the majority of the time I was there. My ankle would swell up. And if it was really bad, my knee would too. Every photo of me we have taken at Disney or Universal. I am in a wheelchair. We never really got a conclusive diagnosis. I was diagnosed with juvenile arthritis, an unspecified autoimmune disorder, and even a ganglion cyst. After an MRI, a partly fused bone was discovered in my ankle. A single surgery was all it would take to fix it. Or at least lessen the pain. If only we had known that back then. Full stop. Meeting my husband totally changed my life. Before I met him, I kinda just submitted to the idea that I was gonna be the 40-year-old lady who worked at Dairy Mart. Always on the verge of poverty. And lived with 20 cats in an apartment not fit for human habitation. I don't see what he saw in me at the time. I hadn't showered in a week. Was wearing clothes full of holes. Was smoking cheap cigs like a chimney. And hadn't brushed my teeth in like 3 days. Mind you, my husband comes from extreme wealth. So it's even more surprising that he thought I was worth talking to. Much less worth hitting on, but we hit it off the moment we started talking. And for the first time in my life I felt a little bit of hope for myself. I mean, this amazing guy was hitting on me. Maybe I wasn't so awful. Fast forward 3 years. We are now married. I have won the battle with my depression and anxiety. We live a humble but healthy life. He is about to start a rather lucrative career that he is excited about. We are about to get a dog. And generally have a normal and happy life. Never in a million years thought I would be this happy. He spoils me like crazy. And gives me hope during my rarer dark moments. I know for a fact that he saved my life. My friend's sister was his mom and his mom was his grandma. They told us at high school graduation. Grew up uber rich. My dad was a real estate mogul in the European country I grew up in. Seriously, no worries in the world. Life was ducking perfect. Then, one day, a bunch of government officials, heavily armed, raid our home, take all the contents of my dad's office, take him away, and now he's in jail for fraud and money laundering. Yeah, the money isn't there anymore. My family was torn apart, and because I missed being a spoiled brat, I drank myself into oblivion for 2 years. Now I just function like anyone else, work full-time at a restaurant, internship, college classes. It is just interesting making the mental shift from knowing your life will be worry-free and extraordinary because of nothing I had accomplished to not knowing what my future will look like and working hard to earn a spot in this world. I was sitting in the yard with my 18-month-old daughter watching her play in the kiddie pool. I heard the phone ring, ran inside to answer it, and it was a call from our adoption agency. They told me that a baby boy had just been born. His biological mom didn't make an adoption plan, but knew she couldn't take care of him. He was in the NICU and had a heart defect that would require surgery. They asked if we would like to adopt. We didn't know much. We had no information on prenatal care and didn't know how serious his heart condition was, other than that he would need at least one surgery to correct it. For some reason, we still said yes. He is now a totally healthy 12-year-old boy. He is a bright kid and is a 3-sport athlete. He fits into our family perfectly and I couldn't imagine life without him. But I did not expect that summer day to change our lives forever. This one is good. Literally one of the luckiest and the best things that happened to me. When I finished secondary school at 15-year-old, I had so poor grades that I was not selected to any high school I applied. I had no plan for my life. Then my parents saw that local vocational school college was starting to try out combining college and high school. Not sure if those are correct terms for them since I'm not from English-speaking country, but I got in just by signing the paper. It took 4 years, but after that I went to University of Applied Sciences and here I am now, product development engineer and working for big company, planning power plants. I was finally comfortable and confident in my identity as a les. Then I fell in love with a dude. Went on holiday in Spain as a kid. Didn't like. Don't want to ever go back there. Barely attend Spanish classes at school. Because why bother? Well, I've been happily living in Spain for the past 10 years. Got married. Quit job and moved out of parents' house to live with a buddy in a different state while wife was in boot camp for a few months. She finishes boot camp and decided to divorce me. Now I'm flat broke and have to move back in with my parents. Age 27. Was the youngest PhD student at my entire college. Supervisor decided he didn't feel like marking my thesis, so it got left under a desk and I was forgotten about. Went from promising young scientist getting job offers while studying to not being able to get work in my field because of a did not complete on my academic record. Loser college dropout considering offing myself and got a call from my best friend at our company we started just got funded a lot of money and that we're moving in 3 weeks. My freshman year of high school. A female friend of mine asked me to homecoming and I shut her down pretty hard. Not maliciously, of course. I was just a stupid, dense teenage boy. We both went on to date other people and ended up in super long-lasting toxic relationships. 3 days ago I married that girl that I was such an idiot to turn down. In 2007 I decided on a whim to go to university since everyone I knew was doing it and I figured it couldn't hurt to have a degree. In 2016 I started as a lecturer at the same university teaching the same course I graduated in. Was in love with my now wife when I first met her aged 13. It was never the right time for us to get together. She was either with someone, or I was. I actually told a less serious GF when I was around 18 that she, wife, was the one. Shouted her name out in my sleep a few years later whilst I was with another girl, which went down well as you can imagine. In late 20s found out through someone else that she'd moved to Australia. I'm English, so I gave up, forgot about her to an extent. Fast forward to early 30s. Split up with a girl. She split up with me actually. That was on the Sunday, 2 days later. After I'm walking away from bank where I've been to arrange loan to buy now ex-girlfriend out of house, and I bump into future wife, who returned permanently from Australia the same day I'd split with my ex. We've now been together 12 years and have a 10-year-old son. Within 6 months of bumping into her we were living together. Within 9 months she was pregnant. When you know then you know. She drives me insane on a daily basis now, but that's an entirely different story. Spent my entire life like a robot due to upbringing and autism. Then aged 23, made a real friend. It may seem like a small thing, but getting sober. Never thought I could do it after many failed attempts. It's been 6 months today. Spent a decade near enough in a spiral of depression. Didn't realize it was what it was until halfway through. Every day's a fight, but I'm winning now. At the age of 22 I found out I have multiple sclerosis. When I was diagnosed with HIV I alerted the guy I was with. It was a relationship based mainly on sex, to get himself checked out. Which he said he turned up negative. I was pretty distant with people for a long while, so we lost contact for 2 years until he called me one day to catch up as he had some news. We meet up and he wanted to tell me he has Hodgkin's lymphoma, cancer. During the catch up I find out he actually had a HIV positive diagnosis a few years back, but he doesn't believe that HIV exists, so what he has is actually an AIDS related illness. So I discover that I got HIV from a guy that doesn't believe it is real. And he also believes that he can cure himself from cancer by alkalizing his blood and using an experimental device from Russia. And in a past life he was from Atlantis. Fast forward 6 months or so and I'm visiting him in hospital when a friend of his drops in and gives him some kind of metal plate that he's supposed to strap to his body that will shrink his lymphoma to nothing in days. This friend charged him money to loan this device. Fast forward 3 months and the cancer is too far spread to be cured. That was the last time I saw him. I found out he died a few months later on some feeling that I should check the obituary section in the newspaper, and it turned out that his family had his funeral a couple weeks ago. He coincidentally is buried about 20 meters from my dad's cemetery plot, which is pretty convenient. At the DMV waiting to take my driver's test. Me. Mom. Why does my social security card have a different last name on it? Mom. Me. Mom. Moments later. DMV lady, why does his social security card have a different last name on it? We can't let him have a permit until you get this fixed. Why is it different? Mom, without ever looking at me, because before today he didn't know he was adopted. I was doing pretty good in life. Then one afternoon I crashed my dirt bike and became a quadriplegic. One hell of a plot twist. But I adapted and am doing great again. TW. Miscarriage. 2017 is basically one big plot twist for me. Met my man online and started an online relationship after a really toxic relationship. Planned on moving me to where he's at in August and all is well. We got pregnant in March when I went to visit him. So everything had to be sped up and I moved to him in May. 2 days after I got there I miscarried. After about a month of applying for jobs at 100s of places, I had one office call me back and is paying me almost twice what I expected with benefits. We've been renting a room looking for places with no luck. Expecting to be where we were at for another year. Then bam. We found a rent to own $100 less than the monthly rent we expected. Very blessed. Very happy. Traded a beloved Subaru for a new Lexus SUV because my GF and me needed something big for the dogs and I couldn't afford two cars. Fast forward to when I was able to afford two cars and wanted to order a brand new ST. Saw my old one driving around. Talked to the guy and sold it to me. Went traveling with my girlfriend of 4 years. Met an amazing person. All became best friends and traveled with each other for 4 months. Got matching tattoos as a souvenir of our amazing time. Plot twist, girlfriend cheated on me with that person we had become best friends with every night in the last week. Whilst I was in the same room. Asleep. Found out through fixing her broken phone for her and the messages coming through. Edit. I think everyone is assuming I'm a dude. That's okay. But everyone is a female in this situation. Don't think that changes much. But thought it was worth a mention. Thanks so much to everyone for the support. It honestly means the world. If anyone ever needs to talk about the shitty cards life deals, I'm here to talk. Peace and love. My father died when I was 6. My mom told me it was a heart attack while he was out at sea with the Navy. In my teens I assumed she might have been covering up something bad about him to spare my feelings, and maybe he killed himself or died of a drug overdose or something because he wasn't fat or unhealthy. Cut to 20 years later and 7 of the 8 siblings in his family have died before the age of 60 because of heart disease related issues. I'm starting to think it wasn't a lie. Edit. Lot of upvotes and suggestions. I go to a doctor. I developed diabetes and high blood pressure by the age of 22 and have been treating it for over a decade now. Uphill battle. But thanks for the kind words. I was a typical indorsy white kid, in love with Lego, computers, movies, games, TV shows, photography, books, arts. I have eczema and albinism and I'm allergic to grass, all of which was even worse as a kid. I hated being outdoors for fun, let alone chores, and mowing grass was my least favorite of all. So what's the plot twist? Fast forward a few years and I got a job as a landscaper. I loved my job and was so good at it my crew was sent to fix up the places that other crews screwed up. I even got the chance to maintain the holiday property of the CEO of Starbucks. When my ex left, it was very sudden. Just I don't want to be married anymore. I don't want to be a mother anymore. Boom. That was it. I find out she's been conversing with someone online. Ironically, because I encouraged her to. She complained about not having a social life because we had 3 small kids, 9, 5, 4. We got into Lost and I found a forum for discussions. She got super into it. But mostly because of all the forum drama. Apparently everyone was internet cheating on everyone. A few months later, she's leaving me on Thanksgiving Day. She blamed me for everything. Of course. And I bought most of it like an idiot. Come to find out the guy she left me for is transgender. Ultimately he became a woman and left her for another man. Last I heard,